A lot of people mistakenly believe that the New York Times is really good at reporting on everything. They're not. The New York Times is great at stealing stories, all from all over America. If you were a desk jockey anywhere in America and you covered one big story that hit international play, you have gotten a call from the New York Times and somebody asking to confirm all the things you said so that they can rerun the goddamn story for free in the New York Times when some dipshit, piece of shit fucking Columbia graduate rewrites it. I'm not sure how ground could be a bad product per se. I'm pretty sure it's a product for people too lazy to look into the news sources they frequent. That sounds like old, not Newsweek. What the fuck was it called? There was one thing, I wish it was still around. We had it on military bases for free, and I fucking loved it. But it was a news magazine that had 2-paragraph articles for every day of the week from all of the major news sources. That was like a big news digest. And it was kind of like Newsweek, but it wasn't Newsweek specifically. That's just what the title of it sounded like. And you could just it was the most informative shit ever. It was just a bunch of blurbs, and then they would show you where the original story came from so that you could go look it back up. Very, very good. Let's see, what is ground news anyway? Ground news. Real news delivered daily. I don't like that. I don't like that statement. Uncover the media bias behind today's top news headlines. So this presumes, that's just dangerous language. That starts when your header starts off with a presumption that you are already experiencing news bias and that they can help you with it. It's suspicious. It doesn't mean that it's bad, but that is just a suspicious thing you should be aware of. With over 50,000 news sources and 60,000 news stories daily, Ground News is the largest news aggregator in the world. Oh, this might be similar. Save 35% and compare how news headlines are being covered by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and hundreds of other sources. Okay, if it's an aggregator, that might not be that bad of a thing. I mean, it's also true that those things are, but just be aware that if somebody says something that you're going to agree with before they give you a single fact, that's also how people sell you prescription pills. Subscribe today and help support the fight against media polarization, bias, and manipulation. The future of better news is in your hands. Sign me up, buddy. $5 a month. This whole thing, if you guys haven't seen it, this whole thing looks like it's meant to fucking appeal to like the average President Sunday viewer. It references to famous paintings and artworks. See the full picture. Bill is $64.99 a year. That might actually be worth checking out for a little while, just to see how good it is. Helps answer frequently asked questions. What is ground news? Ground news empowers. Don't care. Who owns and operates? There we go. Small team of 18 media outsiders based in Ontario, Canada. Ground News is co-founded by siblings Harleen Kaur, ex-NASA, and Suk Singh, ex-Bain. Ground is backed by a handful of mission-aligned, independent individual investors with no ties to corporate media, big tech, or government affiliations. What? How is that? Who the fuck are they affiliated with then? Oil? In addition to our team, Ground News is supported by our community of subscribers who resonate with our team's mission to improve the online news environment. You can learn more about us here. Problem with partisan media. There's issues. Think freely. A better new way to read the news. See the whole picture. Biased factuality, ownership. Ground News is everywhere. You tell me who owns Ground News. Let's see. Who is Harleen Kaur? Let's see. Founders. Search Google for Harleen Kaur. Modern Indian clothing store. Okay. How about Suk Singh? IMDb. Altered Carbon, Travelers, and the Whisperers. Is it this guy? I don't think so. It's just that must be like the John Smith of whatever ethnicity he is, because there's so many fucking Suk Singhs right now. Let's see, Ground News, LinkedIn, ex-NASA engineers fighting bias, fire and CTO, University of Waterloo, Ground News. Co-founder, UCIC, senior associate at Bain & Company. What the fuck is Bain & Company? Business and consulting services in Boston, Massachusetts, 2 million followers. Global consultancy that helps the world's most ambitious change makers define the future across city. Killer and integrated with a vibrant ecosystem. Digital innovators to deliver better, faster, more enduring outcomes. 10-year commitment to invest more than $1 billion in pro bono services brings our talent, expertise, and insight to organizations tackling today's urgent challenges in education, racial equality. Blah, 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 blah. Oh no, it's Sweet Baby Incorporated, but for digital stuff. So it's just kind of like an investment. He just worked for a series of investment firms and then also NASA. Oh no, Harleen, who is a lady, worked for NASA. Sook worked for just Bain, I guess. Only 5% right bias. This news story is a blind spot for people on the right. Oh, that's interesting. The blue, red, white, and red graphics on ground news are very disappointing, but could be potentially perpetuate distrust. How can ground news help improve news literacy and combat disinformation among vulnerable users? On our app, we have changed the messaging to make it very clear that the underlying bias ratings that inform these graphics are sourced from independent third-party agencies that are dedicated to monitoring and rating news outlets along the political spectrum. We found this methodology helps build trust with wary users, as people have typically expected that it's just our team unilaterally making these decisions. I mean, that's what I would be suspicious of at first. I actually might check out ground news and give it a run. This doesn't seem like that bad of a thing. I'm always suspicious of stuff, but they're not making the news or publishing it. They are basically doing an aggregation system. I don't know what the pay is for. I don't know if that gives you access to. I don't know what the fuck that gives you access to, actually. I think that was here. Ground, let's see. You cover 40% left covered. Conservatives aim their fire at Texas Republican after scumbags content. So this is a thing. All right. Updated 3 hours. This is a summary. The battle between these guys. Fox News. Okay, this is actually very similar to the thing I was talking about, although it also includes ratings. But it gives you, I'll show you guys, I'm sorry. I don't have any of this on the screen. I was just going back and forth as I'm doing searches, just in case. So this gives you link outs. This is going to create, I think they don't understand this necessarily. If we go down here, a lot of the times, Republican outlets, no fucking paywall, right? And then we can get straight through. So there's no paywall on this Republican thing. We go back to ground news. We go to Texas Tribune. It's going to be, left. It's an actual newspaper. Take our content, please. You're welcome to republish articles for free. Oh, as long as you follow our publishing guidelines. Nice. Article doesn't exist or isn't republishable. GeoPeer. Let's see. New York Post. The Hill. Center high factuality. The Hill, do we get through or do we get paywalled? The Hill we get through. We got ads. Raw Story, mixed left. Ooh, we actually do get through here. Subscribe for $1. I've never heard of Raw Story in my life. Oh, it just shares the fucking Texas Tribune, so that's not great. So Raw Story, this is kind of not great. Raw Story reruns this. So this is the Texas Tribune, and I'm going to guess down here we have the Texas Tribune. It doesn't say who wrote it because I can't get to it. But I'm going to assume that it's probably the same Texas Tribune reporter. This all goes into something that a lot of standard, like your day-to-day civilians, folks like you guys, don't know about journalism. And that is, you guys don't know about... what the fuck? All I can think of is Forum News Service right now in North Dakota. Wire. You guys, a lot of people don't know what wire service is. And I'm going to explain that now. So, news is like you have to be on the ground a lot of the times to get it, right? A lot of people mistakenly believe that the New York Times is really good at reporting on everything. They're not. The New York Times is great at stealing stories, all from all over America, If you were a desk jockey anywhere in America and you covered one big story that hit international play, you have gotten a call from the New York Times and somebody asking to confirm all the things you said so that they can rerun the goddamn story for free in the New York Times when some dipshit, piece of shit, fucking Columbia graduate rewrites it. It's hyper common. It's just one of the most common things of all time. On the ground, you have what we call wire stories. It's becoming hyper common around for people to share stories. Now, the wire is just an old concept that means it is a story that's not from our newsroom. We got it literally off. It was wired, like electronically communicated to us back in the day by teletype machines or even fucking, click Morse code on a fucking telegraph, all that kind of shit. Nowadays, there's giant news aggregation programs that you can just download stories from and fill your newspaper out from them. Oh, but Tyler, that's only newspapers. No, my friends, that's also 99.9999% of the political coverage on your local fucking CBS, ABC News. That's not just cameramen going out to the scenes of car crashes and murders and just turning a camera on while somebody goes, I can't, another today tragedy in the West End as another person was shot to death. The wire helps fill what we call news holes, right? You have an X amount of coverage that people expect. They want 10 stories a day, so to say, right? And so you're going to give them 10 stories, even though you have enough staff to only write, nowadays, 1, 2, maybe 0. And you get stuff off the wire. A lot of places have wire services or even multiple wire services. Some news organizations exist only as wire services. AP News is a wire service. AP doesn't really have front-facing news publishing services. They do technically, but nobody really subscribes to the AP. But that's the Associated Press. But the AP does reporting. Josh Wood, my buddy journalist Josh, was an AP reporter when I met him. He was an AP bureau staffer for North Dakota. He was also the only bureau staffer for North Dakota covering the Bakken. He got sent out there because the AP wanted constant wire stories from that area. Our other friend who was there, Ernie Shader, he was a Reuters wire reporter, and so he would write for Reuters, covering Reuters stuff. Reuters takes that information, they sell those stories to newspapers around the country that are interested in it. Reuters tends to be more very dry money numbers stories. AP tends to be straight news and interest stories. And it kind of changes from there. So you also have a lot of the times in North Dakota, we had the Forum, the North Dakota Forum, which was a North Dakota centered wire service. The Forum News, you would join it. And for a discount, if you submitted to Forum, you could also take Forum News. And so like we would have, I would write like 2 or 3 stories per day. If you were in the news, yes, 2 or 3 per day plus photos. And I would be running out my stories, but even that couldn't fill all the news holes. And for certain other things, we would have to use Forum. A lot of the times what you go for it is for sports. So if you're not from the capital city or the city that has the big team, right, you get your sports coverage from The Wire. A lot of organizations, if you buy the licensing for The Wire, you can use The Wire whenever. You can just get stuff off of it. So if you run into a news hole, you can subscribe and then you can republish. You have to put all the stuff in, you have to put people's name and shit, but then that's what it is. So that one news site we saw, it showed multiple coverage of the same story, and even that's leftist, I still have to tell you, you saw multiple coverage of the same story. Wow, the different people are covering this in different ways. Actually, however, 2 sources were the same story because more than likely Raw Story reran a wire story from the Texas Tribune because it looks like the Texas Tribune is free. In Kentucky, it's not quite a wire service. It's a non-profit news source called the Kentucky Lantern. By the way, if you want to know what's going on in Kentucky, follow the fucking Kentucky Lantern because half of the newspapers are running Kentucky Lantern stories for free because there's news holes and the news holes have to be filled. And so they run Kentucky Lantern stories. And so you could get in a position where if you're like, well, what is the bias of the news today? And you'll say like, wow, it seems like this lefty opinion or like this lefty coverage of this political story, there's 30 fucking papers running it. And there's only 10 sources covering this Republican side. And then if you actually look into it, you'll find that because of the wire sources, the 30 publications are actually just 3 different wire stories republished through 30 different publications. Maybe like 2 or 3 local pubs or local journos are writing their own coverage. On the right side, you'll find very often that they're rewriting wire stories. Righties do that all the time, so they can say like, oh no, this is original coverage, but it is basically press releases coming down from right side, right conservative think tank pieces or releases about stuff. They'll get put out, and then everyone will rewrite it, put their own name on it, and they'll say, well, there's 10 sources covering this story. The story is them fucking resourcing just something that came down from a think tank. Lefties will try to do it too. And if you're on the left, you should fucking resist it. You should tell everybody how this works. So now that you guys know this is how the news works. I'm kind of glad that this ground news thing came up so I could show you guys this stuff. It's very common, and it's not a bad thing. You need wire stories. A lot of times it'll say from, whatever. It's newspapers do this the best because the newspaper, you can always go back to the top of the story. You never come in halfway, and you can usually see how it was put together. So it'll say, whatever, headline, sub, Tyler, coolest guy in is Tyler the coolest guy in fucking live streaming? Absolutely. Learning more about streaming's fucking biggest dick, cool guy. Awesome. Written by Tyler Bell. And then it'll say next to that, it'll say courtesy, usually, or some variant of that, Forum News Service, courtesy Associated Press, courtesy Times, whatever, courtesy. Oh, here's the one. If there's any actual journalists in my fucking chat, courtesy Tronk. There's a throwback. If my wife just heard that in the other room, she went, TRONC. A billionaire bought up the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Tribune family of papers. At one point, fired all of the photographers and turned it into a news aggregator called Tronk that everyone hated and didn't work. Ancient story. But you'll see that. So that's just a thing to keep an eye out for. And it's one of the biggest reasons I always read who writes stuff. It's not just to credit them, it's also to credit them. If it's a mistake, if we see it a bunch of times, if I say the name out loud, you'll catch up with it. You'll be like, oh shit, wait, this is actually just the same story twice. And it's just a thing to be aware of. Let me just tell you, I think I've given you guys a better understanding of how to source news stories right now than my friends who write news stories. I'm just looking at their fucking Twitter, and of course they're on there. I'm not saying ground news is bad. I will say that ground news is not news. Ground news is news aggregation. So if you look it up and you agree with how they boil it down, that's cool, but you are not supporting news at all by going to ground news because they're not doing the original reporting. They are basically doing reporting on reporting as a third party, maybe I guess at this fourth party investigatory body who is aggregating the reporting from other third-party bodies, which I would be more interested in seeing the third-party sources right next to the names. I don't know I can't remember if they included it. I don't see it here. It just kind of raw says high factuality, lean left. So I would say this is pretty mid. This is pretty mid as far as value, I would say go. I think you can accomplish the same thing by just subscribing to multiple news sources. Like you can do the same thing. If you really want to know what the fuck is going on, my breakdown, Reuters almost always trustworthy. Reuters reporting it's not like CBS, the champagne the champagne of the evening news. But very good. Reuters standards for reporting require a level of factuality to be included in the story for sourcing and stuff that makes it very difficult for them to get away for anything. So basically, they play with their throat exposed. They don't report stuff in a way that you can kind of get away. AP, also very good. AP is generally, I would say, I would give them 80 to 95% trustworthy rating in a general sense. I'm not really basing that on too much more other than AP reports so much, and so many people rely on them. And you have to understand different types of stuff that will come through the AP. I'm talking about straight news, not fucking opinion pieces and op-eds and editorials that might get recycled through there. Very, very trustworthy as far as news wires go, to the point where the Associated Press determines the writing standards for journalists across the country as far as the kinds of words that you use and stuff. It's called the Associated Press Style Guide. I have it right here. Here's something you'll never see on anyway. Listen, this is my fucking 2013 Associated Press style book with all my goddamn notes and shit in it. I don't have too many. Oh, this might not be mine. This might be someone else's because it's not full of fucking right. But it shows you how to stylistically like write all this stuff out and how to get through things. So if you're ever wondering like what makes a journalist, I'll tell you right now. If someone says that they're a journalist and they've never touched an AP style guide, just kind of fucking ignore them, because they probably don't know a lot of the rules that you need to know. The rules that you need to know to do good reporting. They might not even necessarily be lying or trying to mislead people. They won't understand how to not be misled and how to write stuff so that it's universal. Oh my. We're a little bit late. Off topic, but where can we buy an autographed copy of your books? From me in person sometimes. What's going on? Stream Elements. This poor guy. Well, look at these smear frames. Alan Grant, by the way. I can never remember. Look in the description for his channel name because it's just a series of letters. What's going on here? He froze. Poor Gorpo. There you oh no, those smear frames are great. I like that they're just little jagdies. When you look at them individually, it's like, oh, it's so messy, but it looks so good when it's in motion. I think on westsidefairytales.com, check it out. westsidefairytales.com is where I have a lot of my links to my stuff. So more than likely, I think we have some copies of West by God, and you can buy them on there. Or we're ordering in more, and I'll sign them and send them out. We'll turn him back on here in a second. I have no idea. Dude, Stream Elements, man. God damn. Packet lost Corpo. For real, for real. Zant. I like that. I'm going to pin that shit. Good journalism has rules, but ultimately is supposed to function as the watchdog. Too bad that's lost nowadays. I wouldn't say that's the case at all. Most of the people that don't get good journalism think that they're only going to get it from places that never purported to ever do good journalism. People think that like they're going to watch Rachel Maddow and learn shit, you know, and they're stunned. They're like, I fucking watched like 15 hours of Rachel Maddow and I feel like I don't learn anything. Like, yeah, you're watching fucking cable news, dude. Like, subscribe to your local newspaper. And if it's not good, write to your local newspaper man and say like, hey, your fucking coverage is shit. You can talk to him. You can be like, hey, why aren't you covering thing? I want to learn more about stuff. And sometimes they don't even know to cover it. Like, you can actually access people on the ground. Like, if you want to know more about things, tell your newspaper, I'm a subscriber, and I want you guys to cover the city hall. They might even be like, we don't have a city hall reporter. You want to go down there and do it? We'll give you like $25. Where were you when Gorpo was killed? Don't worry, there's a lot of Gorpos. He might come back. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.